At the beginning of the movie, we see a search team looking for a missing couple in the woods. We then see a mysterious pit with a large bell hanging inside it. Then a pair of sniffer dogs enters in the same deep pit, where something unseen watches them as they drink from an underground pool. Later, one of the search team members notices the dogs behaving strangely, standing perfectly still, facing each other with their eyes locked. Even after he locks them in their cage, the odd behavior continues, but he decides to leave. That night, the dogs start whimpering, and strange noises prompt the man to check on them. As he enters, he witnesses something horrifying. The dogs' bloodied faces have fused together, and the scene abruptly cuts.
Comment. Subscribe to Recapss Horror.
We are then introduced to Tim, who is looking at photographs of himself and his girlfriend Millie, when a picture of his parents appears. Just then, Millie enters the room and tells him that everyone is waiting outside. It's their last night in town, and they're having a farewell party with all their friends. It is revealed that Tim and Millie are leaving for the countryside, as Millie, a teacher by profession, has gotten a job there while Tim is a struggling musician. Later, during Tim's farewell speech, where he thanks everyone, Millie surprises him by going down on one knee and proposing to him in front of everyone. Tim is stunned, and Millie feels embarrassed, but he awkwardly responds with a yes. That night, Tim apologizes, and they question their relationship. They kiss, but he stops, saying he's had too much to drink. Later, while he is sleeping, he hears Millie say, "Everyone knows you need me more than I need you. Resenting me won't make you less of a failure." Confused, he turns toward her. Millie tells him to ask them to leave, adding that she can't sleep with them staring at them. Tim looks ahead and sees his mother sitting on the bed, crying as she stares at them, while his father lies dead beside her. Terrified, he pulls the blanket over himself, but his mother's ghost emerges from underneath it, and he jolts awake. Later, Tim is unpacking when he finds a chainsaw inside. He switches it on, then startled, quickly puts it back. Soon after, he notices a strange smell. Following the odor, he goes upstairs and spots a light hanging. When he opens the canopy, the stench intensifies. As he reaches in to check, he discovers several rats stuck together. Suddenly, one of them is still alive, startling him. Later at work, Millie meets a colleague named Jaime. They start talking, and Millie mentions that she's living here with her partner. During the conversation, it comes up that Jaime is actually her neighbor. That night, while Tim works on his music, Millie asks if the internet is set up. When he says it'll be ready next week, she invites him to bed in romantic mood, but he refuses, saying he has work. He suggests the hike she mentioned for tomorrow, and though she agrees, she leaves looking disappointed. The next day, we see them heading out for a hike. In the woods, Tim notices a bell hanging from a tree. Millie warns him not to go further, but Tim insists that the path is marked with bells. The scene cuts to them lost in the forest as heavy rain pours down. While figuring out where to go, Tim falls into a pit. When Millie tries to pull him up, they both end up falling in. Checking their phones, they discover there's no signal. They decide to wait there until the rain stops. Tim breaks a piece of wood lying there to build a fire. Millie feels thirsty, though the water bottle holds only a small amount. They notice an underground pool, but Millie refuses to drink from it. Tim drinks from the pool himself, saying the water is fine, fills the bottle, and keeps the water for later. Then they are seen drinking and talking. Millie asks how he found the rats earlier in the house. Tim recalls being a kid when his father came home one day and told him to clean his room because of a smell. He cleaned it, but the next day his father said it was still there. On the third day, his father came in, panicked, demanding to know what the smell was, and tore the room apart but found nothing. Tim felt afraid because he couldn't smell anything. The next day after school, Tim finds his father standing in the room with a wicked grin. He has found it, a dead rat nesting above the warm light. Every time Tim used that light, he had been slowly cooking it. The smell had built up so gradually that he never realized he'd been breathing it in every night. He had forgotten about it until the night he found his parents in that condition. The smell that night was worse, stronger the closer he got to their bedroom. When he opened the door, his mother was smiling. her mind shattered after waking to find her other half gone. She continued going to bed each night beside that face, the room thick with the same suffocating stench. Tim had stood there choking on the taste of his father's decay, while she seemed unaware, just as he had been with the rat. The scene shifts to the next morning. Heavy breathing from an unseen presence fills the air. Tim wakes, feeling its breath against him, his own breathing growing heavier until everything falls silent. As he exhales and inhales, he realizes the cave walls are breathing with him. He notices Millie's breathing has turned unnatural. A sudden grip seizes him. He jolts awake, realizing Millie has woken him. They rise and discover their legs are fused together. Shocked, they try to pull free, but the pain is intense. At last, they manage to separate. Then they climb out of the pit, recalling the long night inside, as the injuries on their legs come into view. Then they are seen heading back home. Later, Millie suggests going into town for groceries and asks Tim to massage her back. Suddenly, Tim's demeanor changes. He grips her back and presses down hard, as if not in his senses, causing her pain until she tells him to stop. He apologizes, unsettled. Millie, sensing something is wrong, says she will go to town and tells him to rest. As she drives away, Tim heads to the shower. While Millie is on the road, Tim suddenly feels something wrong and collapses against the wall. As Millie turns her car, he loses control, slamming himself into the wall. Each time Millie turns, he mirrors the motion, injuring himself. When she drives straight, he presses so hard against the wall that the tile cracks. Then suddenly, he snaps back to awareness, terrified. The scene shifts to Tim at a doctor's office. The doctor suggests it could be anxiety and prescribes DSFM. In conversation, the doctor mentions a couple who went missing in Tim's area. Back home, Tim researches the missing couple and finds an article about them, eventually locating the missing woman's social media profile. Millie arrives and asks him to cancel his music tour, saying he isn't well. Then she warns him not to use too much internet since it's limited. She notices he's looking at a woman's profile, and he explains about the missing couple. A knock at the door interrupts them. It's Jaime. Millie introduces him to Tim. Jaime brings a bottle of wine, and Millie invites him to join them. Over food, Millie shares their strange experience in the woods. Tim asks Jaime if he's seen anything unusual there. He adds it felt like cult territory, a cave, a giant bell, church pews in the walls. Jaime replies that a chapel once stood in that area but collapsed years ago. He then compliments the meal, and Millie says Tim made it since she can't cook. She jokes that she never had to learn, but Tim questions whether she would know how to cook without him, and Millie counters by questioning whether he would know how to drive without her. The playful banter turns tense, and Tim complains that she gets a personal cook while he feels trapped. Jaime tries to defuse it, saying they complete each other. The scene cuts to Jaime leaving. As he leaves, Tim comments he thinks that Jaime likes Millie and she likes him back. Suddenly, Tim feels a strange impulse and kisses her, but soon their lips stick together. Millie thinks he bit her, while Tim insists something is wrong. She tells him to stop making excuses and storms off angry. Later that night, Millie feels something strange and asks Tim to roll over, thinking he's lying on her hair. When she looks, she finds him staring at her. She switches on the light and is startled to see that her hair is going into Tim's mouth. He's choking. She screams and tries to pull it out, and Tim also starts tugging at the hair. Eventually, he manages to get it out and breathes heavily. Both are left confused about what just happened. The next day, as Tim is getting ready for his tour, he pulls another strand of hair out of his mouth. Millie asks him not to go and insists they should talk about what happened last night, but Tim insists he has to leave. Millie drops him at the station, says she'd drive him the whole way if she could, and tells him to enjoy a night with his friends, relax, and catch up with everyone, adding that he feels trapped here anyway. Next, while waiting for the train, Tim suddenly feels unwell. He takes his medicine but starts breathing heavily again. We then see Tim stumbling down the road, clearly disoriented and looking sick. On the other hand, Millie is on a video call with her friend, sharing her relationship issues. Her friend offers to come over, but Millie declines, saying her parents are visiting that weekend for lunch. The friend questions Tim's career choices at the age of 35. But Millie defends him, saying he's a good guy. She recalls that on their first date, she mentioned her favorite band was the Spice Girls, not realizing he was a bit of a music snob. On their second date, he showed up with the Spice Girls on vinyl. Her friend points out that was a decade ago and asks what he's done lately. Just then, Millie sees Tim outside the window. She rushes out and takes him to the washroom. Tim says he needs to see her and claims he's thirsty all over. He starts kissing her, and they enter a toilet cubicle, where they become intimate. Afterwards, they seem happy and satisfied, until they realize their genitals are stuck together. When they try to separate, it's painful. Millie shushes Tim when she notices someone's shoes outside the cubicle. Once the person leaves, they attempt to pull apart again, but the pain is intense. Millie puts her hand over Tim's mouth and pushes him back with all her strength, which hurts them both. Suddenly, someone else enters the washroom. Tim hides by climbing on the toilet seat as someone knocks on the door. Millie calls out. Just a sec, flushes, adjusts her hair, and steps out, only to find Jaime standing there with a little boy. Jaime tells her this is the boy's washroom. Embarrassed, Millie apologizes, and Jaime sends the boy outside. Thinking Millie is on her period, Jaime tells her to use the staff bathroom next time and suggests she clean up. As he is leaving, he notices Tim's legs inside the cubicle. The scene cuts to Millie, angry at Tim for showing up in her work area. When he says he didn't force himself on her, she responds that he has avoided intimacy for months and is now barging into her workplace with sudden need. She suspects he might be doing it intentionally and reflects on how much she has sacrificed to make his impossible dreams a reality. Tim believes he left his life behind to move here with her. She questions what life he means, seeing no trace of his music, and thinks that if he feels trapped, he should leave. Tim feels unable to do so, admitting that he is not okay and that his brain and body are not in sync. She says she can't make every decision for him. She is not his mom, even if she is starting to feel like her. When Tim asks what she means, she responds, like she's living with something that's dead. She then goes to Jaime's house and rings the bell. Jaime opens the door and she apologizes for what happened at school. He accepts, but she begins to cry. When he asks what happened, she says her day has been stressful and that she had a fight with Tim. He invites her inside and goes to get her some water. While waiting, she notices a picture of Jaime with a man. Later, sitting with the glass of water, Millie reflects that since they moved here, she and Tim have not been on the same page. She considers that they may not have been in a safe space for a long time and might be too afraid to admit it. She knows she loves him and cannot remember life before him, but wonders if they have become complacent. Jaime reflects on a story he teaches about the ancient Greek belief that humans were originally created with 4 arms, 4 legs, and a head with 2 faces. However, fearing their power, Zeus split them into 2 separate beings, destined to spend their lives searching for their other half. He believes that if someone finds their other half, they should not let go too quickly. Millie asks if he lives alone, and Jaime recalls that there were 2 of them when they first bought the place, both around the same age as her and Tim, with the same issues and fight. He once walked away, finding it liberating but ultimately miserable, unable to exist on his own and even missing the fights. He realizes that, for better or worse, he was himself because of his partner. Jaime mentions having a tape of his wedding he has been looking for an excuse to watch. Suddenly, Millie sees Tim outside the window. She rushes out, saying she will watch the wedding video later. Tim is then seen apologizing to Millie and holds her hand. Just then, Millie begins to feel something and gently clasps his hand in return. Later that night, while in his studio, Tim asks Millie if she's ready for bed. He then checks on her and sees that she has already fallen asleep. After taking his medicine, he returns to the studio, closes the door, and begins researching the location of the missing couple. He realizes it's the same place where they had once fallen into a pit and notices the same bell in the background of their photo. Suddenly, the internet cuts out and a loud thud echoes at the door. It's Millie, standing there, seemingly tracking Tim's movements. As he shifts position, her body slides along the door in sync with his. Tim rises onto his toes and notices that Millie is doing the same, her body trembling violently. He slides the door open, and she collapses onto him, still shaking uncontrollably. Tim tries to wake her, but when she doesn't respond, he slaps her. She suddenly snaps out of it and questions what was he doing. They are then seen talking about what just happened. A drop of blood falls from Millie's nose onto the table. Tim insists that something happened to him in the cave, something that is making him act insane, and now it's inside her too. He explains that the missing couple had taken the same path to the cave, and maybe the same thing happened to them. Millie says she's fine, but Tim argues that it's only because she's awake and adrenalized. At night, when the mind is tired, the body takes over and things get worse. He reminds her of the day their legs got stuck together, and also after they were intimate. They couldn't separate, as if they had become magnetic. Millie tells Tim to sleep in the spare room and walks away, but pauses mid-step. Tim says he knows why she stopped, because something inside them has imprinted on each other, a pull they can't resist. He insists there was something in the cave and vows to return in the morning for answers. Millie replies that her parents are visiting Sunday and she doesn't want him there. She leaves, and Tim notices the drop of blood on the table creeping toward him. Later, they are both shown settling into their respective sleeping spaces. Millie closes her door, while Tim leaves his slightly open before turning off the light. As Tim sleeps, his body suddenly begins dragging across the floor toward Millie's room. Half awake, he realizes he's being pulled. Panicked, he struggles to stop himself, his body trembling violently. His toe bones crack as he desperately resists, and then he feels something moving inside his stomach. He braces himself against the wall. Suddenly, a loud thud comes from Millie's room. Her door rattles as if she too is being dragged toward Tim. The door opens, and Millie appears, her body unnaturally bent backwards as she staggers toward him. She falls, gasping, before being pulled further in his direction. Tim watches in horror as something stirs inside her hand. Her body contorts and she cries out, "What's happening?" She bends again, rises to her knees, and then falls forward. Tim also crashes down on his stomach. As they reach out, their hands touch and suddenly begin fusing together. The pain is excruciating. Tim urges Millie to stay strong and tells her to grab the medicine from the drawer. Struggling, Millie tries to reach it, but the drawer falls. She tries to open the pills bottle, but the pills scatter everywhere. They both start swallowing them, crushing some, and even licking and snorting the powder in panic. Tim covers his feet with his lower and locks his legs against Millie's, pushing back as their hands meld deeper into each other. They strain against the pull, fighting to resist until finally, both collapse unconscious. The next day, Millie is seen tying Tim to a chair while he remains unconscious. When he regains consciousness, he realizes that Millie is about to sever their joined hand with a chainsaw. She tells him that before the medicine wears off and things get worse, he should drink alcohol to ease the pain. Tim begs her not to do it, but suddenly there is movement inside their fused hand. Terrified, Tim tells her to go ahead. Millie starts the machine but struggles to handle its weight. Gathering focus, she tries again and begins cutting through their joined skin. Both scream in agony before the scene cuts to them sitting on the floor, exhausted. Tim realizes they now have only 2 tablets left. They rush outside, with Millie insisting they go to a doctor, but Tim argues that no doctor can help them. In frustration, Millie shouts that she's going to the hospital anyway, only to realize she left her car keys at Jaime's house. Before leaving to fetch them, she warns Tim not to do anything stupid in her absence. Tim nods, but as soon as she leaves, he rushes back inside, grabs a rope and a torch, and runs off toward the pit. The scene cuts to Millie arriving at Jaime's house. She finds the front door open, and we see the same bell hanging outside seen in the woods. Meanwhile, Tim descends into the pit and begins exploring. Inside the cave, he hears a human sound and becomes alert. At Jaime's house, Millie receives no answer when she calls for him, so she starts searching for the car keys. Suddenly, she hears a television playing. Following the sound, she finds Jaime's wedding video running.
You're still watching? Good. Like, comment, and subscribe to Recapss Horror.
As she watches, she notices the same bell appearing in the footage. Back in the cave, Tim sees what looks like a face emerging from the wall. He then notices a painting on the cave wall. one that also appears in Jaime's wedding video, showing two bodies joined together. In the video, Jaime and his partner exchange rings and walk toward the cave. She sees the same pool of water from which Tim once drank. Then the couple cut their arms, clasp hands, and kiss. At that moment, Jaime suddenly appears behind her. Meanwhile, in the cave, something grabs Tim's leg and drags him down. His clothes stick to the cave floor as he struggles. He then spots a horrifying creature, possibly the missing couple, whose bodies have now fused grotesquely. Tim screams for help. Back with Millie, Jaime urges her to join them. He tells her that everyone is afraid at first, but this is a great gift. So few are lucky enough to become whole, he says. Millie refuses, but Jaime insists she truly desires it. He promises her that the connection is deeper than anything imaginable. No walls, shared fears, shared memories. This is the hardest part. You just have to push through. What awaits is ultimate intimacy in divine flesh. It's already happening, and you wouldn't want the alternative. It becomes clear that those who resist are transformed into monstrous, twisted beings with grotesquely merged bodies. The creature approaches Tim, but he manages to free himself, shines his flashlight on it, and screams out for Millie. Meanwhile, Jaime tells Millie that being open to each other will make the process faster. He suddenly slashes her forearm. She punches him and manages to escape. At the same time, Tim, horrified, notices a knife lodged in the creature's neck. He yanks it out and cuts creature's fingers, then manages to escape from the cave. He comes out, breathing heavily and exhausted. He picks up the knife, and the scene cuts to both of them standing in front of their house from a distance. Millie shouts, warning him not to come closer. She says this has happened before, that they are not the first. Tim replies that he knows. Shocked, Millie asks if he went there. Suddenly, they are both pulled toward each other, dragged across the road. Tim grabs onto a rod while Millie struggles to resist, her body twisting until she falls and clings to a bench. Tim tells her he saw something in the cave and knows how to stop it. Leaving the rod, he says they can't fight this forever. Moving closer to Millie, he insists there's only one way to end it. Millie lets go of the bench. Tim then proposes to her, confessing that he used to fear he wouldn't know who he was without her. But the truth is, he remembers exactly who he was. Miserable, incomplete, cold. He tells her she is the dream that came true, apologizes for everything, and declares his love for her. He then asks her to close her eyes, pulls out a knife, and begins stabbing himself, saying it won't end until one of them is dead. Millie cries out that he doesn't have to do this, assuring him he'll be okay. Suddenly, blood begins soaking Tim's shirt, revealing that it is actually Millie's hand that is bleeding heavily. She collapses, and Tim notices the deep cut on her hand. With her dying breath, Millie tells him to run and be free. But Tim replies, "I will never be free from you." Her blood spreads onto his face, and then she passes out. Later, Tim is seen carrying Millie in his arms and placing her gently on the sofa. Miraculously, she is alive and discovers that Tim fused their arms together to stop the bleeding and keep her alive. She tells him she was trying to let him go. Tim asks if she truly wants to let him go. Millie answers no. He then plays her favorite Spice Girls song, and they begin to dance. While dancing, Millie asks if he's sure about this. Tim says, "I do." They then undress each other, open their wounds, and slowly begin merging together, their bodies literally fusing into one. They surrender to the transformation, figuring that literally becoming one is better than living without each other. Moaning in pain, they completely join, becoming part of the cult Jaime belongs to. In a horrific sight, their eyes are shown merging into each other's as their forms merge entirely. Finally, it is Sunday. Millie's parents arrive for lunch. Outside hangs the same bell seen in the woods and at Jaime's house, a chilling sign that Millie and Tim have joined the cult. Millie's parents wait, expecting to be greeted by the couple. Instead, to their horror, a single merged figure emerges at the door and welcomes them inside. The movie ends here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky.